Well, one of the things that really annoys me sometimes is when microscope companies advertise their microscopes with unrealistically high magnifications. And I think there is a general misconception that people tend to think, or at least beginners tend to think, that microscopes are primarily there to make things appear larger. Well, that's of course correct. But one thing that you should not overlook is that microscopes, in my view, are primarily resolving devices. And this means that they make structures appear that you normally would not see. The primary purpose of a microscope is to resolve details that you would not see otherwise without the use of a microscope. And if you think of microscopes in terms of resolving devices and not so much as magnifying devices, if you kind of rethink a microscope in that terms, then you understand many of the concepts that are otherwise problematic. So if you want to buy yourself a microscope, and if you check some dealers that sell microscopes online, you're going to discover that those microscopes are often advertised with the magnification right at the beginning somewhere. So it says, well, this microscope is able to magnify, let's say, 40 times to 2,500 times, or 40 times to 1,200 times. I've even seen microscopes that were advertised being able to magnify up to 3,000 times, 3,000x they write. And that's quite an interesting thing because more experienced microscopists actually know that this is a totally unrealistic magnification, and that the highest magnification that you can realistically achieve is 1,000 times. And just to illustrate to you that what I mean is I've got a whole bunch of pamphlets here from other microscope dealers, paper pamphlets. So some of these microscopes are not even manufactured anymore. This one, for example, has 10 pages, and yeah, it's a very detailed pamphlet describing all of the features of the microscope. But you know what the funny thing is? It doesn't mention the total magnification even once. On 10 pages, they're not even mentioning the magnification. Isn't this kind of interesting? And then if you go online, many microscope companies will advertise their microscopes with the magnification, and that's basically the most prominent thing. And then here, no mentioning of magnification at all. I mean, there's got to be this kind of a weird disconnect here. Apparently, those people who made these pamphlets here did not consider magnification as important as some other microscope dealers. So that's kind of interesting, and I want to talk about this a little bit. Okay, so first of all, to go back to the point that I made at the beginning of the video, where I said that actually it's a common misconception. People think that microscopes are there to magnify images. I need to now tell you what microscopes are really there for. They're not there to make things appear bigger, but they are there to make structures appear that would normally not be seen. Okay, and there's a difference here. Okay, the thing is the following, that the purpose of a microscope is to resolve details and not necessarily to magnify, because obtaining a high magnification is the easiest thing to do. So for example here, if this microscope that I have here is able to magnify, if this is what you want to know, all the way up to 600 times. And if I want to get a higher magnification, strictly speaking, all I have to do is either exchange one of these objectives, I can do that, or even easier, even cheaper, why don't you just exchange one of those eyepieces? Because the total magnification that I can get is simply by multiplying the magnification of this eyepiece with the magnification of the objective. And the highest magnifying objective I have here is 60 times. 60 times 10 is 600. So, and because these eyepieces are much cheaper, so why don't I just simply stick to one objective and simply increase the magnification of this? Or better yet, if I don't have an eyepiece, I simply take a picture and then I zoom in. I can get any magnification I want, okay? But I will not necessarily see more. And just to make this point clear, right now you're seeing everything on my table and me as a face. All I have to do is zoom in, okay? And now basically you see my mouth greatly magnified, but you're not going to see many more details. Everything's just going to be bigger but also more blurry. Okay, because we do not have any, the resolution is not there. So back to normal now. Well, and to illustrate the point on a real sample, what I've done now is I've taken pictures using two different objectives. So the left one shows a part of a flower, and I've taken this picture with the 4x, the 4 times magnification objective, and the one on the right with the 40x objective. And what I've done is I've magnified both of them to the same level so that you have a side-to-side comparison. And you can see that the one on the left side, taken with the 4x objective, looks much more blurrier than the one on the right side, even though the magnification is the same. So you can see here that a high magnification is only really meaningful if the objective is also able to deliver an appropriate resolving power. Okay, so that's kind of the thing that I kind of wanted to clarify here is forget about all of those things that are announced online when they say, okay, this microscope is able to magnify 3,000 times or 2,500 times, or forget about it, okay? Sure, it's able to magnify that much, right? But you're not going to see more, okay? So last but not least, so why do those companies actually advertise using these type of magnifications? The problem is that many microscopes, low-end microscopes, all the way up to research high-end microscopes, share very similar basic features. I just want to give you an example. Pretty much all microscopes, even from beginner's microscopes, have different objectives in a revolving nose piece. They have, of course, they have eyepieces have to have it. The only difference is sometimes you have a binocular, sometimes only one eyepiece. Okay, but besides that, many microscopes, most microscopes have a mechanical stage. I don't know if you can see this right now. Yeah, that's the thing here that you turn. They have coarse and fine focus. They have a light intensity regulator. They have a diaphragm, an iris diaphragm. Okay, they have a filter holder. So there are many features, or most features are the same from low end all the way to high end microscopes. So for the customer, therefore, it is very difficult to now see the benefits of I would say, almost research grade microscope or a more high-end microscope. So what are the advantages now? Okay, I mean, if the features are pretty much the same. Yeah? And I think one of the reasons, this is one of the reasons why the company started to introduce all of these high magnifications in their advertisement, is simply to distinguish a microscope, the microscopes. And what they're doing is they're simply adding a second eyepiece, which is highly magnifying, and then essentially you can get any magnification you want. So with a very little additional investment, you can double or triple the magnification of the microscope. Right, and it's basically at no cost, right? And this, I think, this is one of the reasons why they do this, so that they help kind of want to, I don't know, advertise the microscope as being a high-end microscope, and then the customer thinks, it's much better. Yeah. So, for example, people might think that because this one is only able to magnify 600 times, only. Yeah. If you buy a microscope that's able to magnify 3,000 times, well, it's going to be 5 times better, right? Because it's able to magnify 5 times more. But you see, that's a marketing thing, I think. Okay, so I think that's one of the things I just wanted to clarify here. One of the big myths is forget about magnification. Many of the interesting things that you see in the living world actually can be viewed all the way up to 400 times total magnification. Okay, so water, pond samples in water, all these things, you'll be perfectly fine with 400 times total magnification. And if you want to go all the way up to 1,000 times magnification, honestly, then you already have to work with oil immersion objectives, and that's already that's a different issue. Okay, it's getting complicated a little bit. Okay, so my advice is everything that is above 1,000 times is totally to be ignored. And I urge you that you base your buying decisions on other criteria besides total magnification. Okay, I wish you all the best. Have a nice day, and as always, happy microbe hunting.